Something just broke inside the WNBA, and nobody saw it coming this fast. What was supposed to be a normal stretch of games suddenly turned into one of the most talked about situations in the league. And now, fans are asking one question over and over again: what really happened inside that locker room? Because according to what people are seeing, and more importantly, what they're not seeing, something shifted between Caitlin Clark and members of the Valkyries circle, including whispers tied to Tiffany Hayes and coach Natalie Nakase. And it didn't happen quietly. Fans are shocked. Social media is going crazy. Clips are being replayed, slowed down, analyzed frame by frame. A look here. Comment there. And suddenly, people are saying this wasn't just competition, it felt personal. But here's where it gets serious. Some people believe this tension didn't start on the court. It started behind the scenes. In practices. In conversations that never went public. And now, unconfirmed reports suggest that whatever happened may have reached a point where it affected the entire team dynamic. And that's just the beginning. Because later we're going to get into the moment fans say changed everything. A locker room situation that allegedly got tense enough to divide teammates. And a second twist that could involve league-level consequences nobody is ready for. Listen, this isn't just about one player. This is about pressure, attention, and what happens when the spotlight gets too bright for everyone in the room. And if even half of what fans are saying is true, this story is far from over. To understand why this situation feels so explosive, you have to go back to how the league has been shifting over the last year. Because the arrival of Caitlin Clark didn't just bring attention, it changed the energy. Ratings jumped, arenas filled, cameras followed everything. And while that spotlight helped the league grow, some fans believe it also created quiet tension behind the scenes. Not everyone was suddenly comfortable with the attention being so focused on one player. At the same time, players like Angel Reese and Aaliyah Boston were building their own narratives. Strong, competitive, emotional. Rivalries were forming naturally, but fans started turning those rivalries into something bigger, more personal, more divisive. Then you have veterans like Tiffany Hayes, players who earned their respect over years, not headlines. Some people believe that contrast between earned status and instant spotlight created a gap that never fully got addressed. And in the middle of all this, coaches like Natalie Nakase trying to manage personalities, expectations, and pressure that the league has never seen at this level before. So when things started feeling tense recently, it didn't come out of nowhere. It came from pressure that had been building for a long time. And now it's starting to show. Now everything starts to come into focus. And this is where the tension turns into something people can't ignore anymore. Because the moment fans keep pointing to didn't look dramatic at first. It happened during a regular game sequence. Nothing headline-worthy on the surface. But when clips started circulating, people noticed something different. A possession where Caitlin Clark made a play, and instead of the usual reactions, the energy around her felt off. No celebration, no acknowledgement, just movement. First it didn't seem like much, but then it kept happening. Different moments, same feeling. And that's when social media locked in. Fans began stitching together clips, saying the body language from players connected to the Valkyries, including Tiffany Hayes, felt unusually cold. Not aggressive, not openly disrespectful, just distant. And in sports, that kind of distance can speak louder than anything verbal. Listen, this is where narratives started forming fast. Some people believe this was just normal competitive energy. Nothing more. But others are convinced there was something deeper going on. Something that wasn't meant to be seen publicly. Then came the first real shift. An unconfirmed report started circulating that there had been a tense moment behind the scenes. Something that didn't make it to cameras. According to what fans are saying, it involved a disagreement over play style, decision-making, and possibly leadership on the court. Nothing official. Nothing confirmed. But the way it spread changed everything. Because now, people weren't just analyzing games, they were trying to decode relationships. And right in the middle of that conversation was Natalie Nakase. Fans started questioning coaching decisions, rotation patterns, timeout timing, even who was being supported in key moments. Some people believe Nakase was trying to balance personalities in a situation that was already unstable. Others think she may have leaned one direction, and that decision created friction that spilled onto the court. Again, this is speculation. But it didn't stop there. Because the biggest turning point came after a game where emotions were already running high. Players walked off the court without the usual interactions. No visible connection. No regrouping energy. And that's when fans started saying the locker room might not be as unified as it looks. Then the first shocking twist hits. According to unconfirmed reports, there may have been a locker room moment that got tense enough to require intervention. Not physical, not out of control, but serious enough that voices were raised and lines were drawn. Some people believe it involved frustration over who's controlling the offense. Others think it was about respect. And a few are saying it might have been about something much deeper: attention, recognition, and roles inside the team. But here's the key detail. Nobody has confirmed anything. No official statements. No direct comments. Just silence. And that silence is what's making everything louder. Because when something doesn't get addressed, fans start filling in the gaps themselves. Now the team isn't just being watched for performance. They're being watched for signs, interactions, eye contact, energy, everything. And the more people look, the more divided the opinions become. Some say this is normal growing pain for a team under pressure. Others are convinced something already broke. And if that's true, then what happened in that locker room might only be the beginning. Now the situation doesn't stay contained. It explodes across social media. And that's when everything gets harder to control. Because once fans started pushing those clips and theories, the conversation moved from, maybe something is off, to something definitely happened. And from that point, it wasn't just analysis anymore, it was reaction. Twitter, TikTok, sports shows, everywhere. Fans are shocked. People are divided. And suddenly, every small moment starts getting magnified. A missed pass to Caitlin Clark becomes intentional. A substitution involving Tiffany becomes strategic. A timeout decision by Natalie Nakase becomes controversial. Listen, this is where perception starts taking over reality. Because once the audience believes there's tension, everything begins to look like proof, even when it isn't. Then something else adds fuel. Subtle moments from interviews start resurfacing. Old quotes, slight pauses, answers that now sound different when played back in this context. Some fans believe certain comments were indirect shots. Nothing obvious, but enough to raise eyebrows. Again, nothing confirmed, but it builds momentum. Then comes the second major twist. A report, unconfirmed but spreading fast, suggests that league officials may have quietly taken notice of the situation. Not publicly, not formally, but internally, monitoring the dynamic, the media attention, and how it's affecting the league's image. And that changes the stakes completely, because now this isn't just about one team. It's about the WNBA as a whole, with names like Angel Reese, Paige Buchers, and Aaliyah Boston also part of the league's rising spotlight. The attention is bigger than ever, and any internal conflict, real or perceived, can shape how the entire league is viewed. Some people believe the league wants unity. Others think controversy is driving engagement whether they like it or not. But either way, this situation is no longer small. Then fans notice something else. Interactions between players across teams start feeling different. Less friendly, more competitive. Almost like sides are forming, not officially but emotionally. And that's when the narrative shifts again. Because now it's not just about one locker room. It's about potential divisions across the league. And here's where it gets even more intense. Some fans believe that the pressure surrounding Caitlin Clark's spotlight is creating ripple effects that nobody is fully addressing publicly. Not her fault, but a reality of the moment. The attention, the expectations, the constant coverage, it's changing how every interaction is perceived. Others strongly disagree. They're saying this is just competition being misinterpreted. That players don't need to like each other to play together. That this is being blown out of proportion. Both sides are loud. Neither side is backing down. And in the middle of all this, no one directly involved is stepping in to clarify anything. No interviews addressing the tension. No clear statements shutting down the rumors. Just controlled silence. And that silence is now doing more damage than any words could. Because the longer this goes without explanation, the more people start believing there's something real behind it. And if the league really is watching closely like some reports suggest, then whatever happens next won't just affect one team. It could shape how the entire WNBA handles moments like this moving forward. And right now, everything feels like it's building towards something bigger. Now the situation hits a level where it's no longer just a sports story. It becomes emotional, personal, and impossible to ignore. Because once the narrative spreads this far, it stops belonging to the players alone. It belongs to the public. And right now, the public is split. Completely. On one side, fans are defending Caitlin Clark, saying she's being unfairly targeted, not directly, but through energy, body language, and what they believe is subtle exclusion. They're pointing to her impact on the league, the pressure she carries, and how quickly she became the face of a growing spotlight. To them, this isn't just basketball. It's about respect. But on the other side, there's a completely different reaction. Some fans are pushing back hard, saying this entire situation is being exaggerated, that players like Tiffany have earned their place through years of work, and they shouldn't be expected to adjust their personalities or play styles to accommodate narratives built online. And that tension, it's spilling everywhere. Comment sections, sports talk shows, even media panels are starting to divide. Some analysts are being careful, choosing neutral language. Others are leaning into the conversation, asking direct questions about locker room chemistry and leadership. But nobody has definitive answers. And that's what's keeping the fire alive. Then the emotional side of the story starts to surface. Fans begin reading into post-game interviews more deeply than ever. Every word matters. Every pause matters. Some people believe certain responses sound guarded. Others think players are simply tired of being asked the same questions. But perception is doing all the work now. Because once emotion enters the conversation, logic takes a step back. Now here's where it gets heavier. Teammates, both current and former, start getting pulled into the narrative without saying anything themselves. Their past interactions with Clark, Hayes, and others are being re-examined. Old clips resurface. Moments that once felt normal now feel loaded. And that creates pressure not just for the players involved, but for everyone connected to them, because nobody wants to be misinterpreted in a moment like this. Meanwhile, the league itself, represented by figures like Kathy Engelbert, is in a difficult position. Publicly, there's no direct response, no acknowledgement of any internal issue. But according to some discussions, the league is likely aware of how intense the situation has become. And that matters, because when a story reaches this level, it starts affecting more than just games. It affects branding, media narratives, future opportunities, even things like Team USA conversations. Because now fans are asking questions beyond this moment. Can players with perceived tension coexist at the highest level? Does chemistry matter more than talent? Is the spotlight creating pressure that's changing how teams function? These aren't small questions, and nobody is answering them clearly. Then comes the emotional breaking point, at least from the outside looking in. A game where everything feels tense from start to finish. No visible conflict, no obvious argument, but the energy is different. Fans watching live start commenting in real time, saying something feels off. That phrase spreads fast, because it captures exactly what people are feeling. Not proof, not confirmation, just a shared sense that something isn't normal. And in sports, that feeling can be just as powerful as evidence. Now players are under a different kind of pressure, not just to perform but to prove that everything is fine. And that's a difficult position to be in, because the more you try to prove something isn't wrong, the more people start wondering if it actually is. So now the fallout isn't just about what may have happened. It's about how it's being experienced by millions of people watching, reacting, and forming opinions in real time. And those opinions, they're not going away anytime soon. Because until something changes, until something is addressed or clarified, this situation stays exactly where it is. Emotional, divided, and one step away from turning into something even bigger. Just when it feels like the story can't get any more intense, something shifts again. And this time it doesn't come from a game. It comes from silence, but a different kind. Because fans start noticing a pattern that wasn't obvious before. Not in what players are saying, but in who's not interacting anymore. Social media likes disappear. Public support moments go missing. Subtle connections that used to be visible suddenly aren't there. And that's when a new theory takes over. Some people believe this situation may have already gone beyond tension and into separation, not officially, not publicly, but emotionally. The idea that certain players may have already chosen distance, even if they're still sharing the same court. Nothing confirmed, but the pattern is enough to raise eyebrows. Listen, then comes the twist nobody expected. An unconfirmed report starts circulating that a private meeting may have already taken place involving key figures. Not just players, but decision-makers connected to the team and possibly even the league. No details, no recordings, just the claim that something serious enough happened that it required a conversation behind closed doors. If that's true, then this situation isn't just being watched, it's being managed. And that changes everything, because once something reaches that level, It's no longer just about emotions or personalities. It becomes about protecting the team, the brand, and the league itself. But here's where it gets even more complicated. Some fans believe this meeting, if it happened, wasn't about fixing the situation. They think it was about controlling the narrative. Again, nothing is confirmed, but the idea spreads fast because it fits the silence. It fits the lack of direct answers. It fits the feeling that something is being handled carefully rather than openly. Then another detail adds to the tension. People start asking whether this could affect future decisions, lineups, rotations, even bigger opportunities like Team USA considerations. Because when chemistry becomes a question, it doesn't stay contained to one team. It follows players, it shapes perceptions. And in a league that's growing as fast as this one, perception matters more than ever. Now the entire situation sits at a breaking point. Not because something explosive has happened publicly, but because nothing has been clarified. No confirmation, no denial, no resolution, just a series of moments that feel connected, even if they haven't been proven to be. And that's what makes this final twist so powerful, because the biggest question isn't what we've seen, it's what we haven't seen yet. What was said behind closed doors? What actually happened in that locker room? And why is everyone choosing to move so carefully instead of shutting the story down completely? Right now, nobody outside that circle knows. But one thing is clear. This situation hasn't ended. It's just gone quiet. And sometimes, quiet is when the biggest moves are being made. So now you've seen how this whole situation unfolded. From subtle tension, to viral moments, to a story that's now bigger than any one player on the court. And here's the truth. Nothing has been officially confirmed. Everything we've talked about comes from what fans believe, what social media is saying, and what unconfirmed reports suggest. But the way this story has grown, that part is very real. Because when the spotlight hits this hard, especially around names like Caitlin Clark, Tiffany Hayes, and figures like Natalie Nakase, every small moment gets magnified. Every look, every decision, every silence. And right now, that silence is what's driving everything forward. So let's bring it back to you. What do you think is really going on here? Do you believe this is just competitive energy being misunderstood by fans and media? Or do you think there's something deeper happening behind the scenes that hasn't been revealed yet? Because people are divided. Some are saying this is normal in a high-pressure league. Others are convinced this is the beginning of something much bigger. And the truth? It might be somewhere in between. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to see where you stand on this because conversations like this shape how these stories evolve. If you made it this far, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm this is the kind of real detailed breakdown people want to see. And make sure you subscribe. Because if anything new comes out, any confirmation, any statement, any real development, you already know we're going to break it down immediately. Until then, keep watching closely, because this story, it's still unfolding.